Why? Why are you apologizing? It's not like it's just some Tuesday in the middle of the summer. Then
I know, but you dressed as a penis and JC dressed as a woman. You know, like could have been like
got a bunch of dang Democrats on here.
The group chat has some good ones in there, Perry. You should have seen them.
Inaccurate.
Kamala. JC is voting for Kamala.
Oh my God! Yeah, I told somebody, I'm not making any political statements here,
right?
I don't know about that. Yeah,
I don't know some kind of statement like that even has become political, but anywho,
it sucks. Yeah, that's but I don't care.
A bunch of garbage. That's all you guys are.
I think it's just a fun thing. Like honestly, we're just having fun on Halloween.
Of course. Hey, nobody's complaining about it.
No, you're right.
Hey, this is an award-winning outfit, right? I won $40 at the bar on Tuesday, man.
Yeah, that's true. Perry, he did all this for $40. Even put on lipstick. Can you believe that? Put on lipstick.
The lipstick makes it, dude.
Yeah, you're right, man. You nailed it. All right, Perry. Hey, man, I want to read your tweet. That cool? Let's start there. I want to read your tweet from a couple of days ago. There was a tweet out about all the quarterbacks, young ones, that are all on the bench in the league. Anthony Richardson, Bryce Young, Trey Lance, Justin Fields, Will Levis, Zach Wilson, Mac Jones, Kenny Pickett. And you retweeted. You said, bold take. Pure progression passing game is killing the young QBs. Coverage-based plays with built-in answers. Coach Spurrier's menu 1 through 10. Steamers and YZ drag. You can run an entire pass game out of it.
Yep.
What does that mean?
Okay. So the pure progression passing game. Is anybody here on the panel? Does anybody know what that is?
Well,
that means you're having your quarterback make the decision. You know, like on one, you go 1, 2, and then 3, and then there's an out. Maybe if I say, am I right?
I mean, is it levels almost in a sense?
No, it's not a levels. It's JC's very close. Yeah, it's a 1, 2, 3 read, regardless of coverage, right? It's not open middle, closed middle, I'm working here to here, or open middle here to here. It's I've got an alert, and then I've got 1, 2, 3. Then you can eliminate alerts based off of coverage, but it doesn't – you can get away with being like, he's my primary, he's open now, I can just get the ball out, and throw it to him, versus actually understanding what the other team is doing. And I honestly remember thinking about this when I was in college, because Coach Roper, we did a little bit of the open middle, closed middle, but also a little bit of pure progression. That was my first introduction to even what that was, because I played for a guy in high school that Mike Lloyd played in the NFL, old school. He had a number system, like it'd be 787, and 7 X ran a 7 route, Y ran the 8, and I think it was Z ran the other 7, right? So it was like, but then from a conceptual and a reading and a processing standpoint, it was open middle. You got either 4 or 2. They could run variation, but from a back end, that's what they're going to be doing. Now, based off of that coverage, you have a play called. Let's try to exploit the area of the field that is most vulnerable for the play that you have called, right? And then you process that, then you have to go, and obviously then you have to go and execute it. And so then Coach Spurrier's menus, right? Menu 1 through 10, it was menu 1. You knew you could run that concept out of 3x1, but 3x1 doesn't simply mean trips, right? Like Coach Spurrier's menu 1 is a 3x1 concept. It's corner, right? Attacking open middle, right? If safeties are tight, you can throw corners. Mm-hmm. Wide, you got the bender. You also have underneath options with the swing route by the back, and a tight end running kind of a spot route coming into your vision as you read corner to cover 2 posts with a 5-yard under coming from the far outside receiver. So you can run that out of a true trips 10 personnel, 3 receivers, 1 into the boundary with a back into the boundary, or you can run it out of, 2 tight ends, 2 receivers to the right, back into the boundary, or you can run it with tight end off the ball on a hit. And so that was the big thing, is it didn't matter the formation. It was just know the play, then we can run it out of any formation, because you know that if I have, if I'm on the front side of menu 1, I have a corner, right? But it wasn't a corner far spot cover 2 post. It was, if I have cover 2 and I've got tight safeties, I'm working corner far spot back, right? You always read high to low. You don't want to read swing route to a corner because you're late, then you throw a pick. And so, like, I've listened to Tom Brady, Kurt Warner talks about it all the time. It's not forcing them to sit down and review the defense and say, like, okay, if I get this formation, the defensive coordinator and the defensive tendency is to do this coverage or these coverages, right? And so I know that if I line up here, they're going to give me an open middle look here, but then also have shown rotation out of it. So then you just take all of that data, and that's why you listen to Tom Brady. What was that series he had? I think it was Man in the Arena. He talked about, like, he'd go to practice, he'd do practice, but he was watching 7 to 8 hours of film a day, every day leading up to the game. And all he was doing, he wasn't sitting there like, oh, I need to relearn the plays I've been running for the last 12 years here in New England. It was I need to know what they're doing, what are their tendencies, and then how can I get us ultimately. His thing was, yes, the play might come in and it might be a good play, but it might not be a good play. But I'm the OC on the field. How can I take what I've seen all week on film? I'm in this formation. I have noticed that they do X, Y, and Z versus formation. The play that is called might not be a good call. How do I get my offense into the right call? That's playing quarterback. And that's where he has stated, and I'm not echoing in a sound chamber with Tom Brady, but I would agree that it does force quarterbacks to not learn the other side of the ball, right? They still are. It's not like they're not watching, but the other thing is, like, you can call pure progression plays that with the right look, yeah, you can rip it, but with the wrong look, and quarterbacks aren't learning to get in and get out of it, it can be a bear. And I just think that that's where they're at. And the other thing too, because of people like CJ Stroud, and I mean, even Mahomes sat a year, but because let's just use Stroud as an example. You put him on the field and he immediately becomes one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL. That is the anomaly. That's not the normal. And when you rush people out there, I mean, Peyton Manning led the NFL in interceptions. I think might hold the season record. And so, for his rookie year. And so, that it goes to show that quarterbacks need to be developed. JB, I've been telling you this since probably the day I met you. It's the reason I started training quarterbacks, is I just don't think that they're developed properly. And I have a passion of doing it.
Perry, I got a question for you with the in-helmet communications that are happening right now with the offensive coordinator, head coach, whatever it is, whoever's designated to talk to the quarterback. Do you think that's also impacting the players on the field this year? Or do you think, like, when you were coaching at the high school level, that it would have been a benefit for you to be in the ear if you knew what you were talking about, like you clearly do?
Well, I can tell you that if you've never been back there, if you've never played the position, you won't really understand that. Like, you have to do it on your own. You can't sit and rely on your coach to give you the answers to the test, because he's going to be wrong, right? Like, it would kill me if I had a play call and I had a few seconds on the mic and was like, hey, they're going cover 3. And then at the snap of the ball, the quarterback doesn't see it. And he drops back thinking it's cover 3, but they rotate into cover 2, and he's throwing a flat route and hitting the corner in the chest for pick 6, right? So it can help, but you have to understand, like, you have to let the players play the game. You can't over-coach it. You give them the play, maybe give them a tip to look for and say, hey, remember on film that if they, at a 3-by-1 or out of our trio formation, remember they're going to try to play quarter halves. Then you got to shut it down. But you can't be like, well, if they do cover 3, then you do this. You can't cover that 20-second window. So you don't want to, have them drink from the fire hose each and every play, because now they're in their head. They're not playing. They're at South Carolina for a reason. They're gifted enough to be out there on the field from an athletic standpoint. And specifically for South Carolina, literally the last thing you want to do is not let LaNorris Sellers be an athlete. So
and that's where I was kind of going with that. Go ahead, JP.
Yeah, that's where I want to redirect. But good question, and I want to redirect that question and my initial question into LaNorris Sellers, because I want, I asked you that question based on the tweet. You were responding to a tweet that was out there. Yeah. So I wanted to ask you what you were describing there about progression progression passes, and wanted to ask you about his development and is that applying to the two-part question here. Is that applying to the development of LaNorris Sellers? That's one, Perry, based on your eyeballs and what you see and understand. The other half of my question is one of our dear buddies, your boy Steven, was on yesterday, and Steven said something that was Mike heard it and kind of nodded his head when he said very, very, very eye-opening. If people have, I don't know, maybe never called a play in their lives or never played quarterback.
Yeah.
You call plays to set up plays.
Yeah.
Right. Mm-hmm. If play A or 1 or 7 or whatever it is not executed, it doesn't set up the next play. And so you have to go back and kind of adjust things. And so with a young quarterback and a guy like Coach Loggins, who's coached in the NFL, obviously, and now he's been the OC here for a couple of years, we don't know how much of that happens. Like, he makes a play call and maybe Sellers doesn't make the right read or hands the ball off and he shouldn't have or whatever. They're never going to throw their quarterback under the bus publicly. But how much of that is more realistic than the fan base understands? So I know I just threw a lot into two questions there, but if you can kind of overlap the answers, that'd be awesome.
Yeah, so I'll start with, touch on the development of Sellers. I think that's been nothing but positive. I think going back to the Oklahoma game, he wasn't running around putting the ball in jeopardy, right? So that was, as we've watched the season unfold and I've been on the show giving my 2 cents, is more so than the explosive plays and having him watching him make, 1, 2, 3 ball, or, 1, 2 shift check down, right? Or it's taking care of the football when the pocket breaks down. Don't, put the ball on the ground and try to spin out and do something crazy. Climb the pocket, stay in there, and then at the last second, then you want to take off and move. I thought he did that a lot better in the last game. From a progression standpoint, it's now you continuing to build on that, taking care of I think that if we win the turnover battle and LaNorris doesn't turn the ball over Saturday, I think we win. I don't think that they're gifted on offense with the way we play defense to go out and just light up the scoreboard, especially in the environment they're ready to play in. But, from LaNorris' standpoint, so then you take that part of his progression as getting there. Then from a passing game, it's, in my opinion, I think it's more difficult to, and I don't know what we run from a passing game standpoint. It's probably a blend of both. The NFL's big on the pure progression, but they also do the standard open middle, closed middle read. And so that what that does, in my opinion, is that when you're taking away and you're just forcing him to say, hey, open middle, we're working the right side of the field, right? So now you're keying on a certain defender saying that if I sink, you're throwing short. But if he comes hard or jumps something underneath, there's something coming behind you, whether it's a curl flat or a hitch dig, right? It's whatever this guy does, he's wrong. And I've seen that, honestly, a good bit, right? Like if you've I think it was one specific example, I want to say was the LSU game. It's a pretty standard play where you have a stick concept to the field and double slant to the boundary, right? If Mike is more walked over to the field and runs to take the stick, you change your eyes, come back to the slant, replace where he just left, and you're throwing completions. I've seen that a couple of times. Those are great plays for somebody at his level, because it's not like, hey, I'm keying this guy, and if he does this and I do that, or if I have this pure progression play, and if they're in cover 2, then I know I'm going shallow cross to dig, or if they're in cover 4, then I'm going, then I'm starting with my alert. It eliminates a lot of the thinking, whereas if this guy goes right, you go here. If he's left, you go here. Or if they line up here, you're going right. If they line up here, you're going left. It eliminates the post snap thinking. Pre snap is okay. Post snap, when if you're doing that or you're hanging on to the ball too long or you're looking at the rush, that's when you see quarterbacks struggle, especially young ones. And then, oh my God, I've got to make a play, pat throw, or I've got to run out and do some kind of crazy play. We want to eliminate the crazy plays. Play within the offense, and then when the opportunity comes for you to use your legs for those crazy plays, then you do it. But you don't need to save the game. We have enough defense, special teams, run game, talent around him to where that doesn't and shouldn't fall all on him.
Perry Orth joining us. It is 12:49. All right, how much have you seen out of quarterback Marcel Reed at A&M? Have you seen a little bit?
A little bit.
Okay.
As in the wise words of Coach Spurrier, he's not exactly a big thrower. And he's more of a runner. We'll put him in there to run it.
That's what I was going to ask you to do. Compare. I mean, I think maybe people have forgotten. There could be 2 redshirt freshmen starting in this game Saturday night, most likely. I mean, we're going to talk to David Nuno here in about 10 minutes, so maybe he'll have a little insight. But they're both redshirt freshmen. I was going to ask you to compare and contrast the 2 of them, LaNorris and Marcel.
Yeah, well, Marcel's an athlete just like LaNorris is. I mean, LaNorris is a bigger guy. I think he could do more running between the tackles. I think LaNorris is a much more polished passer, and I think he gives you a better threat in the passing game. I actually have an employee of ours who's a diehard Texas A&M fan, and he actually thinks they're going to start Wegman and then bring Marcel in if they need him. Which I don't know if I would do that, because then I wouldn't want that kid dropping back to pass versus our front. But hey, I hope they do, so he gets eaten alive. But yeah, I don't think Marcel is as good of a passer. I mean, I think that words talk and numbers scream. When you throw the ball 2 times and you go on, oh yeah, Marcel is just as gifted of a passer as blah, 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 and he can do all these other things. Well, why did you throw it with him twice? Right. So I think that they make themselves very one-dimensional, and it worked well. And sometimes that happens by playing your cards right in ball game. But who genuinely gives you the best chance to win this week? I don't know enough about A&M or the other kid, but I do know that the other kid played against Missouri and they beat the daylights out of them.
I don't think A&M has any chance of winning if Marcel Reed is your guy for 4 quarters, because he's 185 pounds soaking wet. So he's not going to be able to just run through that defense like Swiss cheese. As you mentioned, the arm talent, maybe it's there someday, but I don't see him having much success at all throwing the ball against that Carolina secondary. So I think they start Wigman, and I think he's the guy that's going to be out there more often than not. If you want to roll the dice with Reed for 4 quarters.
Oh, he won the game in Florida. He was their starter and played the entire time.
I know it.
They only threw it 17 times in that game.
And Florida doesn't have Carolina's D, just like LSU doesn't
not
have
even
Carolina's
close.
D. Not even close. Like this defense to me would be a nightmare for Marcel Reed.
Yeah, on the road at night. But isn't the other kid, he's a freshman, ain't he? Wegman?
No,
he's been there for 3 years.
He's had injuries. That's why it feels like that, Perry, because he's been hurt so much. When he's been healthy, he's actually been pretty good.
Yeah, he started against Carolina in 22 when they beat A&M here.
Yeah, he got knocked out.
Right.
JB.
Do what?
I thought he got hurt in the game.
He did get hurt.
In the middle of the game, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's been because NFL scouts actually.
Oh, you know what? You're right. Wegman came in. No, Wegman did not start that game.
No, Wegman came in 2022 and played well. He's erratic. He's a guy that, like, in certain situations this year, like Missouri, and he's a front runner. When things are going well, he's good. Mm-hmm. But when things are not, like against Notre Dame in the opener, he was 12 for 30. Yeah. So I'm with Perry on this. I hope they start him because that's a better matchup to me than than them trying to run like zone read right at the defense. Carolina hadn't seen a team that's just going to run right at them yet.
You're right. Haynes King got
Haynes got hurt
in
the Jimbo game, and then Wegman came in late, and they played well. So I agree with. But then, Mike, you make an excellent point too, because if you can't run the ball against Carolina, who would you rather have dropping back and chunking it, like in obvious passing downs?
Yeah, it's
because Reed could be erratic or whatever.
I just don't think with that Carolina defense, if you go in there predictable play calling, which is what they are going to be with Reed, I don't think he's going to light it up through the air against that defense and that secondary. So you're bringing him in to do, like you said, zone read, and look, he's explosive now.
Yeah, you bring up a really good point. And honestly, I agree with JC as he agreed with me, I guess.
Double agreement.
But I basically should have dressed up like JC and head to the ballot box and voted Kamala. But
you don't have to have voter ID in a lot of these states now, so you could vote 5 times if you want. You could see Perry Orth one day and JC the other.
Yeah.
Kamala.
But the zone read the running back the running quarterback, the zone read puts our defensive ends in a bind, because it's going to, remember, you guys, if you've heard me talk about this, which I have, is you want to make those elite pass rushers think. You don't want to just let them tee off and come and get you, right? Mm-hmm. And we talked about putting Myles Garrett in space and making him move. I don't know if I'm going to get cut, have to rush, have a split zone guy coming across the field and hitting me, or getting chipped. And when you put defensive ends in that bind of, you never know if you're going to have somebody arced or zoned or double teamed or whatever, it doesn't allow them to just pin their ears back and come and light you up. And I think it gives them a better matchup. But I tell you, our linebackers have played well. Our interior defensive line has also played well too. So I personally don't think this is a good matchup for Texas A&M at all. I playing at night at Williams-Brice, but also from that standpoint, from how they've played offensively, plus with we are going to have to play well on offense, but they're a big cover one team, man-to-man, expect a lot of crossing, pick routes, and a lot of quarterback run. Bold take, LaNorris carries the ball over 15 times. Called run on Saturday night.
Perry, now, do you think that's going to be in the RPO game? Because that's one of the issues the Gamecocks have had of executing the RPO. Do you think this is a game where the Gamecocks, it's in the playbook, they need to keep it, but at the same time, is this a situation where you try and minimize mistakes early?
I wouldn't expect, good man-to-man teams can hurt RPO, because really RPOs are more for zone, because you're this guy moves here and you're throwing there, you've got the numbers out here, but when you've got man-to-man, all the numbers are accounted for. From it's really more quarterback run, right? Forcing the defense to play 11 on 11, right? So you have the zone read with the tight end arcing around, putting that defensive end in a bind. So he sees those offensive line, moving swiftly to one direction, right? Moving left. Then he squeezes, then LaNorris pulls, and he's got a lead blocker from the tight end arcing out in front of him. And so now you got a hat on a hat, which puts, in theory, right, everybody blocks who they're supposed to, puts the safety having to tackle LaNorris in space. That's a tough matchup. Now, I'll be intrigued. I'll be at the game, but how my brain is going to be working is, how does A&M line up and decide they want to play our offense? Are they going to play more of a conservative look and play zone defense and make LaNorris pick them apart? Or are they going to do what they do, play man, and just try to beat us? And if they do that, how do we use Sellers' legs to exploit their man-to-man defense? That's what I'm really excited for Saturday.
Perry, we'll let you run on that note, my man.